Hello, and welcome everyone to the Achievers session on building a sense of belonging at work. My name is Emily Pearce, and today you'll hear from both myself and my friend Kristy Jones about belonging at Achievers. As the director of our global customer care team at Achievers, I'm responsible for our frontline agents that keep our members happy and supported. I also contribute to the organization as an advisor for the Achievers Workforce Institute. I'm a co-chair of our mentorship program at Achievers, and I also have my master's in leadership from Royal Roads University. Kristy, I'm going to pass over to you and to share a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thanks so much, Emily. I'm so excited to be here today representing Achievers Workforce Institute. As the Senior Director Employee Success and an AWI advisor, I truly do get to experience the best of both worlds. Not only do I get to play an integral role in employee experience at Achievers, I also have the opportunity to connect with leaders such as yourselves and share our research and how Achievers has applied it to our own organization.
Amazing. Thanks, Kristy. I'm excited that we get to talk about all of these fun, exciting topics together. We're going to start with just talking about belonging. Let's just talk about why this matters to us. So we know belonging matters. Fact, belonging matters. It can change everything for your people and for your organization. And I care about belonging because it helped to transform my team before I even knew what belonging was. So I ended up feeling the impacts of belonging by my team's engagement scores were increasing, more work was getting done, and people were happier. They were staying longer within the team. And my leader and I paused and said, we just haven't done anything though. Like, it didn't feel like we hadn't done a pizza party. We hadn't done anything like that. And we were like, there's a clear difference and a change in this team. And what is that? And slowly we came to realize that it was actually the strategies that we were putting in place were aligned with the belonging model, even though we weren't purposefully doing that. So I felt that my team was actually feeling more welcomed, known, included, supported, and connected, even though I wasn't purposely trying to do that. So it was a really cool way to kind of back into belonging that's made me quite the believer now. So we'll get more into what belonging is later. But if you are a leader with low engagement, or you're a leader with a dispersed workforce and an employee who just wants to enjoy showing up for work every day like I do, then you should care about belonging too. So it increases productivity, it's going to help build trust in your organization, and it's going to increase engagement and retention in your team. So we've covered why I care about belonging and why you should care about belonging. But Kristy, I'd like to pass it over to you to hear your story about why you care about belonging.
Yeah, thanks so much, Emily. So, what would you do if you found out your employee was doing dialysis for 9 hours every night and you had absolutely no idea? I met a woman some time ago, and this woman shared with me that she did not feel psychologically safe at her workplace, at least to the point where she was comfortable enough to share her secret of what she truly was going through each and every day. This employee has never let their health stand in their way of success and always showed up for work on time and continued to be recognized for exceeding her expectations in her role. Working from home was never an option that was available. She never felt comfortable enough to even ask. Fear of someone finding out your secret is scary. What if this was the reason why your employee couldn't travel for work or was able to work extended hours to support the team? Missing out on these opportunities for growth and development seemed to be the norm. Now, this employee's manager never really took the time to get to know her or even ensure that she was feeling supported, even if it was just to take a day here or there when she needed it. Her manager believed that your personal life is none of their business and would stop any conversation that may be heading in that direction. What if this went on for years and you still had no idea? would you be okay with not knowing what your employee truly needed from you? Well, that employee used to be me. I've been at Achievers now for almost 2 years, and I've never felt more at home. I can finally bring my authentic self to work. I've never felt more welcomed, known, included, supported, and connected with the people that I work with each and every day. And I find value with sharing my story with others as a way to build connection and let someone truly get to know me. My past is no longer a secret. And for me, that is what belonging truly means and how you can have that sense of belonging. At Achievers, it's our goal to ensure that all of our A players feel as if they belong. I think I can speak for myself and Emily that the both of us are so excited to share our programs and initiatives that have been created through the lens of DE and IB at Achievers. Today, Emily and I are going to share with you ways in which you too can create a sense of belonging at your organization. You see, our strategies at Achievers are developed with belonging as our foundation, guiding us to ensure that our employees are in an environment where they can do the best work of their lives. Which leads us to, Emily, why don't you share with us what the 5 pillars of belonging are?
I will. Thank you, Kristy. And before we dive into the 5 pillars of belonging, I just want to thank you for sharing that story with us as a group, but also with me as your colleague. I know when we were preparing for this, it was something that you shared with me, and I was really reminded of the importance of perspective and understanding in the workplace. We've worked together a really long time, and it was a really interesting way for me to know more about you and your story and where you've come from. And I think it was a really great opportunity for us to get to know each other better. So thank you for sharing that with all of us. Let's dive in. In our belonging model, there are 5 key pillars that the Achievers Workforce Institute has identified that if you incorporate into your strategy can enhance a sense of belonging in your organization. So these pillars are welcomed. So are you introduced to and incorporated within the organizational culture and community? Known, so understood, motivated, and celebrated as an individual. Included, valued, and accepted without reservation. It's the key there, without reservation. Supported, so consistently and meaningfully nurtured and developed. And connected, so developing and maintaining relationships across a diverse population. My bet is that you're already doing some pieces of belonging in your organization. And this is where we're going to talk through some more of the practical tips about how we at Achievers support belonging. And it's important to note as we talk about this, the Achievers Workforce Institute has found that if you only focus on one of these pillars, you will still double the sense of belonging in your organization. So that's something to keep in mind as you're going through and listening to these tips. Focusing on one pillar can double the sense of belonging in your organization. At the same time, if you use all 5 pillars in your strategies, you can increase belonging in your organization by up to 3 times as much. So really important to think about when you're talking about belonging, how and where you can leverage certain pillars in your organization. Kristy, I'll pass over to you and maybe you can get us rolling into the next section about Achievers.
Great. Thanks so much, Emily. At Achievers, employees believe they belong here and treat coworkers in kind. Leaders cultivate their employees' sense of belonging in a way that helps attract, retain, and engage our employees. From our software to our programs and initiatives, belonging is the foundation of everything we do. Every day, our A players find ways to help others feel welcomed. We take the time to get to know others and are intended in doing so. Feeling included in everything we do is a priority for us, and supporting our A players means everything. But I have to tell you, the connections that you make at Achievers can be life-lasting. Of course, if you want them to be. But that's not all. We take the time to measure belonging and listen to our A players' feedback. We use this simple framework where we ask, answer, and action. I cannot stress how important the action step is. If you're going to ask for employee feedback, you need to make sure that you action it. So you might need to be a little bit careful on what you ask your employees. So make sure that you really are intentional with those questions and know that you're going to do something with that feedback that you receive. So at Achievers, we do run a pulse survey 3 to 4 times a year, and annually we include a series of 5 belonging questions. And in fact, our 4 of the 5 belonging questions in our pulse survey ranked in our top 10 in our Q1 pulse from this year. A lot of those open text comments that we receive and we all enjoy reading highlighted feelings of belonging, such as making employees feel welcomed and truly walking the talk when it comes to leadership and strategy. We take the time to conduct exit interviews, stay interviews, and of course, when the opportunity to conduct focus groups. And again, we use that simple framework, ask, answer, action. And these insights that we receive do help us make our future decisions. We will get into some of those a little bit later in the presentation, but we will be looking forward to sharing some of those. So belonging is an outcome of an organization's commitment to creating the conditions of diversity and inclusion for all employees. Achievers 2023 DE and IB initiatives really focus on breaking down those silos and really getting comfortable with discussing topics with our peers. Those topics and conversations that we have run from anything from intersectionality, mental health, unconscious bias, just to name a few. But it is really important to truly bring the conversation to employees, to let them begin to feel more comfortable in talking about those conversations that are often uncomfortable. Development is a big one for me, and it's something that we are continuing to focus on so that our employees feel supported throughout the entire employee journey. We've spent time this year reviewing our global benefits and have implemented new programs to support our employees' mental health, which has been a really big win with our employees. And as we're gearing up to conduct a pay equity audit, we'll do that later this year, and we'll continue on our journey of pay transparency with our employees. With a continued focus on using the belonging model as our lens, the positive impact that it's had already on our employee sentiment is truly paying off. I can't wait to share with you some of those initiatives that we've been successful with as it relates to belonging. So, you think about the engagement experience and what that looks like at your organization as a way of engaging your employees. Let's dive into each of the pillars as we share some of those initiatives that Achievers has done and was successful in moving the needle in belonging. Emily, why don't you kick us off with our first pillar?
Absolutely, I'm happy to. This is the stuff I get really excited for. This is the practical pieces of what we're doing. So starting with welcomed as our first pillar, this is where many of us will think about joining an organization. And I think that's a great place to start when you think about developing belonging in your organization. Welcomed is how you warmly invite employees to your organizational culture and community. So we'll usually start to think about things like onboarding programs. And research shows that having a formal, structured, and required onboarding program also helps set your employee up for greater long-term success and positive outcomes, including things like role clarity, perceived job satisfaction, and retention. So when you join Achievers, you are immediately immersed in company culture through our onboarding program. which includes a few different facets to it. We do departmental onboarding, but we also do a culture onboarding. And so as part of culture onboarding, there's a welcome card, which is signed by the organization, mostly from your department and team. It goes around and your team will complete welcome messages for you, complete with gifts, so that you know that both your team is excited for you to join, but you also get some insight into your team culture by seeing the choice of gift that they use in their welcome card, seeing what that team kind of thinks is funny or great, or how they're going to bring you into their team. So it's a really great way from both sides for you to feel welcomed and for them to welcome you. At the same time, we also do a company-wide introduction. So we welcome all of our new hires in our daily company stand-up. So your leader introduces you, your role, and some fun facts about you. It's really great when your leader does that for you. I know it's challenging sometimes to get up and say a fun fact about yourself. So we really want to support everybody by saying, you know, we want to bring you, and I'm excited to introduce you to this organization and introduce the organization to you. There's so much more that we do when it comes to departmental onboarding. So we do onboarding buddies, which is when you'll get a buddy in another department that, again, is focused on the cultural aspect of Achievers. You'll also have an onboarding buddy within your department, but someone in another department helps to make sure that you're not only talking about your department, that you're talking about the company as a whole. We do 30, 60, 90-day feedback surveys. We do welcome kits because everybody loves swag. And what better way to know that you're a part of this company than when you get your purple mug. And we do coffee with Kates. So that's an opportunity for our new hires to speak to our CEO, Jeff Cates, and learn about the company through his lens. It's really important that all levels of the organization are open to welcoming new members to our team. And so onboarding is super important to welcoming employees into the organization. But my challenge to you here always is there's more to welcoming than just onboarding. So when you think about belonging, think about how you welcome your employees to each day. So returning from leave is a great example. Every time you come in the morning, how are you talking to your team members? I have a really great example with one of my teams is a hybrid team. Their name is Reward Support. And they start each morning by saying good morning to each other in a Teams chat that they have. Whether they're an in-office employee or remote based out of Vancouver employee, they say good morning in this Teams chat. And it started with the manager saying good morning, but now it's an ingrained part of that group. So their manager modeled that behavior, that it was really important to welcome each other to the day. And now they've all taken after that behavior, and whoever's the first one to start the day usually will go and message and say good morning. And so what I love about this is that once the good mornings are done, you have to think that that ice is now broken for the day. So as a hybrid team, I know that now if I have a question, the first time I'm interacting with my team members isn't because I need something from them. I'm interacting with them first thing in the morning to say good morning and having a really positive interaction. Then when I need help or I need support later on in the day, I don't feel as uncomfortable making that message. So it's things like that that you can think about as welcoming beyond just onboarding to the organization, welcoming on the day-to-day. It's a really exciting way to start thinking about bringing belonging into your organization in one of our pillars. Kristy, did you want to take us through the next pillar?
Absolutely. So feeling known, you are understood, you're motivated, and you're celebrated as an individual. At Achievers, we provide many different ways for our employees to bring their full selves to work. Using our employee experience platform, employees have the option to update their individual profiles, where they have the opportunity to identify their pronouns, their skills that they have that others can learn from, and they even have the opportunity to add a fun picture if they choose. And we all know that pictures can tell 1,000 words, right? So it is a very unique way to be able to get to know who our employees are, even just through a simple profile. Our employees have the opportunity to set their own individual goals on both what they want to work on, as well as what are those business needs. allowing those employees to really express their interests and managers to hone in on their strengths and help them grow and develop. One of my favorite activities was when we played this virtual scavenger hunt on one of my team calls, where we had all of the employees on the line go and find something, whoever they were, if it was in office or if they were at home, to find an item that made them feel happy. And then they had to share with us why that item made them happy. And then in turn, we then asked that individual to then go find something, wherever, piece of clothing, any sort of item on really what they think maybe someone else would like. And then share with us, well, why did you think that individual would like that thing? I thought it was a really great way to learn more about people's families and backgrounds and what they enjoy doing when not working. There are so many different ways that you can take time out and truly get to know who your team members are. And it's important. It is really about taking the time and asking the right questions to get to know people and have them open up, building that trust. By you listening and then showing your interest, I guarantee employees will start to share. In fact, people who feel known as individuals are 2 times more likely to feel that sense of belonging. And I'm sure many of you have spent a lot of time over the last several months trying to figure out how your organization should work and where you should work from mandating days in the office to being fully remote. These decisions are never easy, and we know that we will never please everyone. By using our Achievers feedback feature, we heard our employees loud and clear that they wanted choice in how they work and where they work. They were craving for that flexibility. So using that information, we created the workplace persona model, which empowered employees to choose from one of 4 ways that they wanted to work. Rather, if that was working in an office 5 days a week, working hybrid 2 to 3 days, or remote by choice, which we refer to as employees could commute to the office, but they choose to work from home. And then, of course, we have fully remote, where you are unable to commute to the office based on where your location is. This typically includes our employees in our regions and individuals that live outside of the state or province that we're in. So ultimately, the persona model gave our employees the flexibility that they were asking for. It brings enough structure to still create those connection moments, and it did give our leaders the opportunity to have the data and the structures that they needed to be able to implement these plans and policies within their teams. We introduced workplace personas in October of last year, and between October and November, we had a 40% increase in office usage, proving that providing employees with flexibility to do what's best for them positively impacts office usage, which allows us to justify having an office. Our research tells us that workers who say they are able to work in the way that they prefer are more than twice as likely to be highly engaged, and 22% are even more likely to say that they will not job hunt this year. So I'd suggest that the best way to make a good decision on your future of work strategy would be first to understand the unique wants and needs of your employees. Use an ad hoc survey to learn what your teams are prioritizing and work to develop a solution that works for them and your entire organization.
Great. Thanks, Kristy. And I think what you can see here is how these pillars all play together. So the next pillar being included, it ties very closely to known, because inclusion is not just being invited to participate within an organization, but inclusion reflects an employee's deep and unwavering sense that who they are and how they experience their organization is held as critically important. So when we think of inclusion, you can think of things like workplace personas as a really great way to know and include employees in creating their employee experience. We can also look to things like employee resource groups. This is a really great way and a great space in which employees can lead and contribute to belonging in the organization. Through those employee resource groups, we know that we see people can develop different leadership skills and continue to grow as individuals. At Achievers, our ERGs include the Achievers Women's Network, Achievers Proud, Achievers Cares, and we have our wellness and our DEIB committees. But there are more ways to include your employees. And my favorite ways to do that are by ensuring that there is space for teams to co-create the employee experience. You can also allow teams to participate in planning and strategy. And finally, you can create space for feedback and employees to provide dissenting opinions. And you might think, what? Provide dissenting opinions? How is that helpful to my organization? But in fact, employees who feel that they can debate their manager or leader on certain topics are more likely to feel a stronger sense of belonging as their opinions and feedback are valued. And I know if you spoke to my leaders, they would say that I feel like I definitely belong in the organization based on this. So at Achievers, it's a really great opportunity for us to look to how we're soliciting feedback from teams and engaging them in creating their employee experience. One of my favorite examples to look to was in this last year for strategy and planning sessions for 2023. I used this concept to try and include more layers of my organization into the planning process so that we could co-create a shared vision from the get-go. I've found in the past that sometimes we'll get far down a planning process and you only bring in your employees and teams later, and you're trying to work with them to get them to understand the shared vision. So this year we said, let's co-create from the start. We started this by doing an exercise that's called Stinky Fish. So we really wanted to understand what are those things that team members are carrying with them, that the longer you carry it, the stinkier it gets. It's kind of a silly way to do it, but it actually really helps to build empathy and understanding and share perspective from all levels of your team. So that was a really great way for us to start our conversations. And then we moved on to lightning decision jams. So we wanted to understand what was pushing our team towards our goals and what was holding our team back from our goals. We ideated on solutions, especially for those things that were holding us back from meeting our key objectives and our business needs. And then we weighed an impact versus effort. So we said, as a team, let's go through and understand what is the impact of us fixing this thing and how much effort is that going to take. Through doing that and including the team in an impact versus effort understanding, they were more likely to say, you know, this is going to take a lot of work, but I am willing to be a part of that, or I'm willing to lead that because I know the impact is going to be so big. It was a really great opportunity as well for our more junior team members to learn and hear directly from their managers as we had conversations that were challenging, and we had dialogue and discussion about different ideas of, you know, what makes more sense or what are we not considering. So again, what we were doing is we were creating a space where we were sharing and learning together, but also creating a space where someone could feel that their voice was included and valued for the perspective that they bring to the organization. So that was a really, really cool way for me to think about inclusion in a different way. I think historically, I've usually thought about it from an employee resource group standpoint. But if you can think about inclusion from an employee experience, a strategy and planning, a feedback perspective, there might be different ways that you could unlock more inclusion and belonging in your organization that can drive you towards your organizational outcomes. So what about the next pillar, Kristy? What about supported?
Yeah, so by supporting our managers, they really do play the biggest role in the support pillar, right? At Achievers, we focus on 4 pillars of management empowerment. Now, this is an Achievers Workforce Institute tool. And our employees have the opportunity to score how well their manager is doing against these areas. We include this as part of our pulse surveys. So we do those 3 to 4 times a year. And this is really where ensuring that our managers get the feedback that they need to be effective. As a manager, it's important to have frequent contact with your employees, regardless of where they may be working. Our managers have regular one-on-ones with their team members. We have ongoing approach to our performance and development conversations so that our employees have the best chance at doing the best work by receiving that regular feedback. As builders of the best recognition and rewards platform on the market, I would be remiss if I did not talk a little bit about recognition and the recognition needs. So recognition needs to be meaningful for the receiver, calling out that specific behavior that you as a leader want to see repeated. And it needs to be delivered regularly for it to be effective. Our research indicates that employees who are recognized weekly were twice as likely to have a strong job commitment and 5 times more likely to not think about job hunting than those who were not recognized at all. Recognition is powerful. As a new leader at Achievers, I was able to gauge if my employees were feeling recognized by my personal management empowerment score. In my case, there were individuals on my team that did not feel overly recognized. So I put a plan in place to make time at the end of each day or week to reflect on my interactions with my team and their efforts, and my score has since gone up. However, if I didn't have that information or that data to share with me, I wouldn't know what my employees were thinking, what they were feeling. So it really is important to, again, tap into your employees. Another area that our leaders focus on is professional development, ensuring that our employees are developing at a pace that works for them. I run a monthly leadership series for all of our leaders at Achievers, and the topics that I choose each month tend to focus on what the current business needs are and what I think is at the top of the mind of the leaders from conversations that I've had and interactions throughout the month. We've discussed topics such as compensation at Achievers, building trust within your team. And just last month, we had a session on our business operations, and we took a deep dive into our financials, providing leaders with perspectives that most of them didn't have before to truly be able to understand our business and how it works so that they can then have those right conversations with their employees and share that learning together. For me, coaching can come in many different forms, and the opportunities are often endless. If you're a leader that wants to empower your employees, providing just the right amount of coaching will set your employees up for success. I had a manager once that wasn't very good at coaching his employees. And every time you would go to him with a question, he always tossed it back at you. Now, you might think that might be an effective way of coaching your employees and getting them to think for themselves. But in this case, he actually overused this technique to the point where you ask him simple questions on where is the restroom or how do I go do this, where it started to just make his employees feel frustrated when you're just looking for a simple answer. So sharing with your managers their individual empowerment scores and feedback gives managers the opportunities to learn by knowing what their opportunities are. Managers can then take that feedback and action on it. As I mentioned earlier, when we talked about the ask, answer, action framework, it's critical to action that feedback received if you want to drive engagement and ongoing survey participation. So supporting our A players is a top priority for us at Achievers. We believe in promoting internally before we go to market with any open roles. As a part of our development programs, we provide opportunities for employees to go on special assignments and or take on different projects to truly develop those certain skills that they're looking for and that they are aspiring to have. So last year alone, we saw 25% of our employees receive a promotion. Where I come from, that's a lot of people being promoted in an organization, which is amazing. So kudos to all of the managers that have spent the right amount of time and given the right amount of support to their employees' development to be able to have those internal promotions. We also spent a lot of time last year focusing on functional competencies, where we recognized that there was a gap in what skills employees had and what those skills they actually needed in the role. The rollout of these functional competencies has helped our employees have a better understanding of the expectations in the role and then the areas that they could develop on if they're aspiring to be promoted within the organization. So supported is true to my heart as an HR leader, and it is truly important that we're giving our managers and leaders the right skills to be able to support their employees as well. Emily,
Yeah.
we're on the home stretch. Why don't you share with us our fifth pillar?
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more about supported. I know that the manager empowerment scores are also a little bit of a badge of honor with our teams, as our leadership teams all sort of work together to make sure that we've got high manager empowerment scores, to the point that we even put them in our OKRs for the year. So I love that you touched so much on manager empowerment scores, because they're close to my heart as well. Let's get to that last pillar, which is connected. So when we talk about connected, the greatest question to ask yourself here is, do your employees have an opportunity to develop and maintain relationships across a diverse network inside the organization? It's a bit of a mouthful, but we know that organizations that create conditions for workplace friendships actually report higher job satisfaction and psychological safety inside that organization. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. One way that you could look at this is by using tools that help to connect employees to help deepen your sense of belonging and well-being. At Achievers, we do this through a tool that we have called Employee Connections. And what that does is, when you register for Employee Connections, you get paired up each month with someone else in the organization, and you have a coffee chat. It's just an easy, casual coffee chat. It takes away a lot of the anxiety that can come with asking someone you don't know to have a connection. And it creates an environment in which two neutral parties can come together to talk about shared interests or get to know each other in that known capacity. So through these connections, we often see that it does exactly that. It deepens your network in the organization, and then your friendships start to blossom by the follow-up activities, like when we have socials or when we have volunteer opportunities. You might then have a conversation with someone and say, oh, we had that coffee chat. It's great to see you. So there's a really interesting way that when you start to bring people together and continue to create opportunities in your organization for connections to deepen, that you can see belonging increase in your organization. One recent coffee chat that I had with someone was wonderful. He was in our sales side of the organization, which is an area that I don't spend a lot of time. And he ended up recommending a book to me that was really interesting about introverts. Now, as an extrovert, I usually don't need a book about introversion. However, I did need it to understand perspective from another lens. And I ended up then recommending that book to my mentee, who did need to be able to understand some of the tools that were in that book. So it's also a really interesting way that naturally you can start sharing and learning in your organization. Now, speaking of mentorship, as the co-chair of our mentorship program, it's something I'm really proud of at Achievers. We've done a revamp of AMP, which is what we call our Achievers mentorship program. When we asked ourselves, are there opportunities for our employees to connect with and learn more from people that will help them grow? We said, yes, we've got the mentorship program, and that's great. You know, a one-to-one relationship with a mentor, and the mentee gets to meet their mentor and work with them. And we asked ourselves, is there more we could be doing when it comes to connection in that space? And we said, yes. So what we decided to do this year is we developed a community of practice for our mentors. So usually, again, when you focus on a mentorship program, you think about building for the mentees. And this year we said, let's also create an environment in which our mentors can share in their learning, because it can be quite isolating to be helping and developing someone. So how could we better share that network? So by developing this community of practice, we do things like mentor office hours, where we come together and can sort of say, hey, does anyone have a resource on leading self that we could leverage? Does anyone have a resource or an exercise about how to get feedback or feed forward from other team members? So we've created this community of shared learning that extends in a way beyond your day-to-day job, and it gives us a new shared domain mentorship. So it's a really cool way, I think, that we've gone and said, is there a different way to facilitate connection in your organization beyond just social? So finding different shared interests of different groups and leveraging that for development, for growth, and for learning. So Connected is a really cool opportunity for you to bring more belonging into your organization at various levels.
Yeah,
Kristy?
Emily, I must say, kudos to you in the mentorship program. It has added so much value within the organization, and having those opportunities to connect with people at all different levels and open the doors for learning. It's amazing. It really is.
Thank you.
So if you think about it, activating belonging in some ways is about going back to the basics, thinking about that employee journey from onboarding to offboarding, about employees' impressions of the culture, the physical and technological factors at work, and even their engagement. I have to tell you that the secret ingredient that is in the mix of all of those high-performing cultures that we read about and that we all aspire to have is a workplace culture where employees truly feel a sense of belonging. So saying that, Emily, I'd love for you to tie our presentation all together and wrap it up.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kristy. As we talk about belonging, I think sometimes we can feel overwhelmed and think, how do I do this in my organization? This is a big task. And what Kristy and I like to talk about is that belonging doesn't need to be a big strategic initiative. Belonging is a sense that you can create in your organization. And I like to turn to Brene Brown's marble jar analogy. Sure, some of you are familiar with that, but essentially you have an empty jar, and belonging is you can add a different marble for each time. So it's small actions that can develop a sense of belonging in your organization. So think about the things that you can do to add marbles to your jar. Don't think about filling the jar all at once. Again, you're likely already doing things in your organization, and I hope that a lot of the practical tips that we talked about today are things that you think you could bring into your organization or try or tweak or think differently about to help create a stronger sense of belonging in your organization. So thank you all for being here today. And before we go, we do want to let you know that we have a special offer for everybody that's tuned in today. ACE 2023 is our annual conference for HR leaders, and it is just 1 week away. So because you joined today's webinar, we're offering you a free virtual pass. So it's usually $100, but with a virtual pass, you can have access to over 10 virtual sessions focused on creating a culture of belonging in your organization. So if you liked this content, there's a lot more of it with this virtual pass. You'll also earn points towards your HR designations and get to hear from our keynote speaker, Emmanuel Acho, as well as other leaders from companies like Workday, PwC, CBS, General Motors, and more. So you can find the registration link for the ACE 2023 in the related content section on your screen. And make sure to use the code that's shown on the slide, ACE 2023V, to claim your virtual pass. We're so excited for the event, and we hope that you can join us. So thank you so much for all of your time and attention today. To get in touch with Kristy or myself, please reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're always happy to talk to you about belonging, hear about what's going on in your organization, and be able to help consult if you've got options that you would like to talk through with us. So thank you so much for joining Kristy and I.
Yes, thank you. Bye now.